Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the RRAR interview series. My name is Kevin Scorsone, and I am the Government Affairs Director here at RRAR. Joining me today, we are very pleased to have on Jonathan Melton. Jonathan is a Raleigh City Council member. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us on this series. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I just wanted to get started, a little bit of background on you. Where did your love for public service and politics start from? I just from working in this arena for as long as I have now, about 8 years, I sort of feel that all of the dedicated elected officials, which you certainly are one, have a passion for it. So I would like to know where that started from. So we'll start there, and I'll have a couple follow-ups with that, but we'll start there.
Yeah, I've always been interested in politics. I was a political science major in college at NC State. I worked for the Office of Government Affairs. I was an intern there. Then I went on to law school. I don't think I ever envisioned myself being in the elected role myself. But when I moved back to Raleigh in 2011, after finishing law school, I had student loan debt and credit card debt and all the debt we saddle young folks with these days. And I was working for the state of North Carolina at the time, which was a great job, but I didn't make much money.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling to find a place I could afford to live. And my friends in other places, they were renting garage apartments or basement apartments. I couldn't really find anything like that in Raleigh. I didn't know at the time, but I know now it's because those are accessory dwelling units. And at the time, they weren't legal in most places.
Sure.
And so I sort of looked into finding a house downtown near where I worked. I was fortunate enough to buy that house after I went into private practice. I'm a lawyer in my day job. But I just started noticing that a city like Raleigh that was growing and so many different people moving here, we weren't making, I think, decisions that were planning for that growth. And over time, I started to feel like we needed new leadership to step forward. I've always been the type of person, you don't wait for someone else to raise their hand. If you see a void, you feel like you can address it, you rise to the occasion. And so that's what I did. I decided to run in 2019, focusing on things like loosening our zoning laws, getting more types of housing legalized and built in more places, investing in transit and non-car infrastructure like sidewalks and greenway connections and bike lanes. And that's really what pulled me into the race.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And, I appreciate that transition into the elected official role, seeing an issue and actually stepping up and addressing it. I think that's pretty admirable. My follow-up to that is, you mentioned your first race was in 2019, correct? So,
Right.
A lot has changed in those 5 years, it seems like, from a political landscape, from dealing with the post-COVID type stuff. What are your feelings on the contrast to where your political career started to where it is now, and just sort of how much the environment has shifted in those 5 years?
Well, it feels like two different points in time, almost a different, maybe an alternate universe, sort of speak, when I think back on 2019 and the few months leading up to like March 2020.
Sure.
Obviously, when I ran, I could never have imagined what I would be dealing with during my first term, with COVID and then with all of the social justice issues and the riots that we saw. And so it was a very challenging time to govern, particularly being someone new and having to do most of it from home alone like this in front of a computer screen. And so, I ran on all the issues we just spoke about, mentioned briefly a minute ago. And, I still worked to accomplish all those goals on top of all of these global and national and systemic issues. And so it was extremely difficult. One thing I sort of feel like happened, and it's still happening, is I think folks forgot how to disagree in an agreeable manner. And serving in any office, I'm sure, is difficult. Local office where you're closest to the people has been very challenging at times, just for the amount of discord that there is.
Sure.
And when I ran on things like, let's make it easier to build housing so more people can live here, let's make it easier to get around without a car, I guess I was naive and thought those seem like ideas that everyone can get behind.
Right.
And at times, the amount of negativity and pushback on those issues has been pretty intense. And, what I realized is I think most folks have the same goal, right? I have never met anybody that says, I want Raleigh to be a really crappy place to live. I want Raleigh to be expensive and exclusionary. No one I've heard is saying that. I think we just disagree sometimes on how we get to the end goal of having an affordable, sustainable city. And oftentimes serving in local office, nonpartisan office, there's no alliances along party lines. And so what's been challenging, I think, particularly post COVID, is a lot of like the negativity online, negativity at our council meetings from folks who I truly believe have good intentions. Just sometimes there's just this heightened turmoil now. And so for things like zoning reform, which we know are working in cities that are ahead of us on that timeline, it's been challenging in Raleigh. People get really mad about townhouses. So who knew? But yes, it's been challenging.
No, I think, I totally agree with you in terms of everything you just laid out. And I think it's important, like, that we get to a point again, hopefully we can, uh, where you can agree to disagree and sort of have those conversations and build that discord and create an environment where people feel, I think, that their opposing opinion will at least be heard and not completely rejected right away, because I think that's important. But yeah, I think you touched on a lot of things there of just sort of the environment that politics creates and how people can can get very upset about things that, like you said, didn't seem like a big issue when you were thinking about them. And I want to touch, um, you brought up housing a little bit there. Obviously, for us here at RAR, the housing issues are very important. I don't think anyone has the perfect recipe to how to solve what we're dealing with housing, but specifically in Raleigh, what would you like to see in terms of creating a little bit more inventory and maybe more affordable housing so that everybody, whether you're just starting out or you're starting your family and all these different stages of life, are able to find a place to live?
Right. Well, I think you're exactly right. And what I've told most folks when we talk about this issue is I don't think anyone has solved the issue of affordable housing and housing affordability. If someone can solve it, we would all just start doing it, copying it. But what I am certain is we're not going to solve it doing things the exact same way that got us into this mess. And so I think we have to be willing to try new ideas and new options. One thing that is working, it's starting to work in Raleigh, it is working in places that are a little ahead of us on this timeline, is zoning reform. Eliminating exclusionary zoning, reducing barriers to building different types of housing at different price points. What you're seeing now in places like Austin, Texas, where they've been able to saturate the market with apartments, their rents are dropping substantially. We're starting to see rents drop and stabilize in Raleigh because we've had so much multifamily come online. And and so that is helping. And so I do think we need to make it easier to build things like accessory dwelling units and townhomes and duplexes and gentle infill density and multifamily buildings. And we do need subsidies. We also need subsidies to address affordable housing. There's a difference between housing affordability and affordable housing. Affordable
Say that
housing
all the
requires
time. Yeah.
some subsidy, right? So the housing affordability piece is we need more market rate supply, period. And we need different types for people at different stages in their life. ADUs can be really helpful for keeping generations on the same piece of property under the same roof for people who are aging in place. Townhomes and duplexes and triplexes are great starter homes for families or young professionals, making more room for single family homes. So we're not sprawling out and taking down our tree canopy and doing all this greenfield development and pushing people away from what they need. All of that helps. And in addition, we need to be doing as much as we can for the folks who need the actual subsidy and the assistance. And if we can get our market rate prices to drop, our subsidies will go a lot farther. Because quite frankly, I think our subsidies need to be geared towards the lowest incomes that need it the most. But because rent and prices of housing is so high across the board right now, we're having to direct some subsidy at like 70%, 80% AMI, which the federal government qualifies as affordable housing. But those are folks that we know in our everyday lives that are probably have degrees and are working full-time jobs. And if we can get the market to adjust to that price point and make it more attainable, then our subsidies we can really put into, sheltering folks who are unhoused and finding shelters and then immediate, rehousing for folks into permanent housing. And so we're doing that now, but we can do more of it if the market would drop the market rate prices so we can direct even more subsidy to the lower income levels that need the most help. And so I think it's a yes and a lot of times on the housing affordability, affordable housing conversation, folks focus on either or. They're like,
Yeah.
it's all supply or it's all subsidy. Well, we cannot subsidize housing for everyone in the city of Raleigh, nor should we. And the supply is not going to reach everyone in the city of Raleigh. So it's a yes and.
Yeah, no, I think that, what you said is something I say all the time and try to relay to our members is that there's certainly a difference now between what we call affordable housing and housing affordability. Those are two different things at this point. And also, I thought you made a great point there. Workforce housing, I mean, I say this all the time with the prices continuing to go up, the interest rates continuing to go up. You talked about people with degrees or people working within the community. I mean, if you have a couple, two partners that are two teachers working in the local school system, it's certainly hard to afford a house on a starting teacher's
For sure.
salary. And I mean, cops, firefighters go
For
down the
sure.
list of what, workforce housing. Um, yeah, I think it's more of an issue that that involves more people than you would think initially. So I appreciate you giving us a little insight to that. I do think when we talk politics and things that need to change, we do look at the negative a lot, but I wanted to shift focus a little bit and talk about the positive. I mean, we still see Raleigh and the surrounding areas continually growing, the Triangle and Raleigh still being a destination for people to move to. What do you attribute to the continued success and that growth, and how do we maintain that?
Well, we have a lot going for us. We have a good climate. We can get to the beach pretty easily and accessibly from here. We can get to the mountains pretty easily and accessibly from here. We have great universities in the area, so we have a very young, educated workforce. There are a lot of job opportunities. And it's a wonderful place to live. We've got a beautiful tree canopy. We have a wonderful growing city. And it's a good thing that people want to move here and people want to invest here. There are plenty of cities and towns across the country. They don't have folks investing, they don't have folks moving there. They're struggling to pay for essential services because they don't have the tax revenue and the tax base. And so there are certainly challenges that come with growth, but there are also limitless potential and opportunity. And that's how I choose to look at it. We have to plan for the growth. Not planning for it doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means it's not going to happen well. So I think we should embrace it, plan for it, and count our blessings that we're an area where there's a lot of investment occurring.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I moved here from New York in 2018 and just it's been a great transition for my wife and I and our growing family. And it's just crazy how much it's grown in those 6 years since we've gotten here. It's great to see. I wanted to sort of piggyback on that question a little bit. What are you most proud of yourself since taking office? Something that you've been able to play a part in and accomplishing in the city of Raleigh?
Well, it's hard to pick one, and
Yeah,
I could
sorry about
I
that.
could
Yeah,
pick a lot of
the
things, but
spot.
since I'm talking with an organization that's very focused on housing, I would say obviously the what we've done for zoning reform. We've legalized a lot more types of housing, which is the strangest way to talk about it, isn't it? We have to talk about how we made certain types of housing legal. I don't know why they were made illegal to begin with. You look at some of our oldest, most historic neighborhoods, most sought after places to live. They're they were built before modern zoning laws. So you have duplexes next to single family homes and townhomes and row homes and small apartment buildings all living together, existing near each other. And those are some of the best places to live in Raleigh, people paying top dollar to live there. And then we made it illegal to replicate those types of communities. And so, what I'm hoping we're going to see, and what we are seeing, is now that we've loosened it up and made it legal again, we're seeing more types of housing being built. And I think that the legacy there is going to be huge. It's going to continue to allow more folks to live here. It'll allow us to make more space that doesn't require sprawling, unsustainable development. It's going to make it easier for us to implement transit because we'll have the necessary population density for the ridership. I think you're going to be seeing more small businesses start up because it'll be easier for folks to get what they need closer to what they need. And so it touches on so many points of building a sustainable city. But I do think the zoning reform that we've been able to accomplish, I think that's probably what I'm most proud of. Definitely one of the things I'm most proud of. So yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot you could touch on, and I appreciate you sort of, narrowing it down to that, especially for our membership. They'll
I
appreciate
could
that.
talk about a lot of other things. I could talk about our work to provide more protection to the LGBTQ community, our non-discrimination ordinance. I could talk about uh,
We have a DEI committee here. I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about that, I'm sure they would sort of love to hear that as well. So if you want to expand on that a little bit, feel free.
yeah, well, we're continuing to find ways to help. We partner and work with local nonprofits. There's a lot of nonprofits in the community that are already doing good work, like the LGBT Center of Raleigh. We just allocated some additional funding to them for their outreach and ambassador program, helping folks who are unhoused get the assistance they need. We partner with Wake County to pass a non-discrimination ordinance, which protects folks in the public and private sector. Um, there's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
That has been one thing I've obviously cared a lot about. Um, Working on public safety and then also alternative response models has been something I've been very proud of. I think we need a well-trained, well-paid police department to deal with public safety issues, but then I also think that we ask our officers to deal with more things than they're equipped to handle. And having an alternative response model where someone who's a social worker or has training in folks who need help can show up instead in certain circumstances. I think that's important. We're working on that too. So I've been on council for almost 5 years. It's been a very busy 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, those are all interesting and great things. And I think it's always interesting to sit down and actually have these opportunities to talk directly to elected officials because it's tough for everyday citizens to know how much is actually being done. And I think it's important for you to address all that. And we appreciate it. My final question, I want to value your time. And again, thank you for joining us. My final question, obviously all elections are important, but it seems that this upcoming election cycle at the federal, state, and local level has an added just an added dynamic of importance. So how important is it for people to participate in that election cycle? And secondly, how does the local level play a role in shaping policy, and why do you feel like that's an impactful place to be?
Well, this will be the first time that the Raleigh City Council election has synced up with a presidential election. We were moved to even year in 2022, so we were on the midterm ballot. Now we're going to be on a general election year. And so I do think that there's going to be perhaps a little bit less attention on local races as the top of the ticket and the statewide stuff gets more attention. The benefit will be a higher voter turnout because more people are going to come to the polls because they have more reasons to vote. But we do have to work harder to educate, I think, voters on local issues. Local issues where a lot of stuff happens. We're closest to the people. I think it's sometimes why so many people come to our council meetings who are upset is because sometimes they're upset with us for things that are not within our control, but we're the only elected body they can get to.
Yep.
There's not public comment for the legislature or the governor or the senators and so on and so forth. We're the ones and we're the first line. And so, I do think educating yourself on issues is extremely important. One thing that will be interesting to me is I serve a nonpartisan seat. The issues that we deal with on a local level, truly, most of them do not fall on partisan issues. However, Raleigh is, widely known. This is no secret. We're a very progressive city, very blue city. We tend to vote Democrat up and down the ballot. And, at times there are very well-intentioned, I think, progressive folks who have heartburn or are opposed to some of these zoning reforms and changes. And I can understand change is not comfortable. It's not comfortable for me either. But the reality of it is the Democratic president of the United States, Joe Biden, the Biden-Harris administration, they support the work we're doing. You can go to whitehouse.gov right now and so search zoning reform and see all of the white papers that they've put out on the benefits of eliminating exclusionary zoning, increasing subsidies, making it easier to build. We're doing all that work in Raleigh. And so I do hope that folks will understand that local issues are important too, and there is synergy here. There is synergy here. If you're a Democrat, if you're supporting Biden Harris and you're going to bubble that section next to their name, you should look for the candidates on the local level that are supporting the Biden Harris administration's goals for housing reform, because we are doing it. But regardless of how you vote, everyone should vote and you should educate yourself. And you should definitely make sure that you're not leaving our races blank. We're going to be at the back of a very long ballot, and I've been telling folks start at the back and just work your way to the front.
There you
So
go. Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to do it, actually. That's a good advice. So yeah, I just wanted to say again, I think, I certainly appreciate the work that you all do at the local level. I was fortunate enough to do one of these interviews earlier with one of your colleagues, Corey Branch. So, a lot of I think it's just going to be nice for our audience to be able to see the work that is being put in at the local level. Because like you said, it's probably the spot where that doesn't get as much highlights or as much recognition from the media, so on and so forth, especially in the climate we live in with national politics and state politics being such a hot button issue. But it's important to know that there are great elected officials out there like yourself that are working hard for the people every day. So I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to talk with me, and educate our membership. It's really appreciated, and we appreciate this relationship and your ability to come on here and talk with us. So thank you.
well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. You have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.